What's going on, my good people? Mike Hidalgo here. Thank you for joining us on another FCP Euro DIY. Today we're going to be working on a 2006 Porsche 987 Cayman S. Today on the Cayman behind me, we're going to be covering how to replace your rear sway bar end links. This is going to be applicable to not only the 987 models, but the 986, 996, and 997 models as well. In front of me, we have a pair of Mila HD sway bar end links, which are available on fcpo.com, along with a couple other brand and different options. Typically, these are going to last you anywhere from 60 to 100,000 miles. It really depends on how you drive your vehicle. A good rule of thumb is if you're doing a shock or strut replacement, they do these at the same time, as the end link is also part of the pinch bolt that holds the assembly into the upright of the vehicle. So it's kind of a good rule of thumb and something that we will be doing on this car behind me in the future DIY. Something to know about the Mila units is these have a counter hold on the inboard side of the ball joint versus the end of the stud. So just keep that in mind. The hardware sizes can change between factory originals and what you're replacing it with. So keep some tools handy. And speaking of tools, let's take a look at some of the tools we're going to need for this job. For this job, you're going to need a torque wrench that can do a value of 50 Newton meters all the way to 130 Newton meters. For that, we have both a 1/2 inch drive and a 3/8 drive. We also have a 3/8 drive and 1/4 inch drive ratchet. We have a thin 17 millimeter wrench. This is going to be crucial for the top portion of the end links. If not, you may want to shave one down, or you may be able to squeeze one in there. It's a bit of a tight fit. An extension is going to come in handy for the top 18 millimeter nut. We have a 16 millimeter wrench, a 15 millimeter wrench. Keep in mind the hardware can change from the original factory parts to the replacements. In this case, the Mila uses a different size bottom nut for the bottom portion of the end link. We have a 19 millimeter socket for our lug bolts, an 18 millimeter socket, a 15 millimeter socket, a T30, and then some nice to haves are electric tools, as well as your favorite penetrating fluid. Now we know what we're working with. Let's go ahead and get started on this DIY. All right, my good people, we are going to be working on the rear passenger side of the Cayman today. However, the steps are going to be identical for both the driver's side and the passenger side. First things first, we have 5 19 millimeter lug bolts to remove. If you don't have an impact gun, you want to break these lug bolts free with your breaker bar on the ground first. Then you can jack up the vehicle and undo the bolts the rest of the way. Today we're just going to zap them off using our impact and our 19 millimeter socket. All right, now that we have our wheel off, we have a little bit of a better view on where we're going to be working. Our link is in the back here, so let's get a little bit more cozy and get ready to remove our end link. All right, my good people, now we're going to grab our 17 millimeter thin wrench and our 18 millimeter socket on our ratchet. You can probably use a wrench in there as well. That's a bit curved. You can go ahead and remove the 10 millimeter bolt that holds the shield in place. However, you're going to have to remove the brake caliper as well, as it is a hard line that goes to the soft line in order to get a better view of the nut on the end of the link here. But with a flex head ratchet like the one that we have here, mentioned at the beginning, you're able to access that 18 millimeter nut, no problem. So we're gonna go ahead and get our 17 counter hold ready to rock on the back side. If you've done the fronts on your Porsche, then you know that the rears are, now you're gonna know they are the same part number. So it's just a little bit of a different view where everything is, but the idea remains the same. All right, I'm gonna break this nut free. Now we have the nut undone. Let's go ahead and hop underneath and work on removing the nut on the bottom that connects the end link to the sway bar itself. All right, my good people, for the bottom, similar to the fronts, if you've done the fronts before, we have a T30 counter hold at the end of our stud, and we have a 16 millimeter nut that we need to remove. I'm gonna use a 16 millimeter wrench and an T30 on the small 1/4 inch ratchet, just to counter hold. There we go. Soaking this in penetrating fluid definitely helps. Hitting the threads with a wire wheel is also not gonna hurt anything. Get that off the rest of the way by hand. And we can pull the top portion out. And now we're just going to do the reverse. We're going to feed the top in, and we'll feed the bottom in, and then we'll start with the bottom nut and work our way to the top. Now we can take our new end link, feed the pinch bolt portion through the top. Get that started. And we can actually move this ball joint a bit and get it to the bottom of our sway bar here. Then we can get our new nut started on the Mila units. They use a 15mm nut. And then the Mila units also have a counter hold that allows for a 4mm hex that you can use to counter hold. Right now, I'm just gonna grab a 15mm ratcheting wrench and snug up that nut as far as I can go before the stud starts to turn on us. For these lower ones, there is a 2-step torque procedure. You wanna snug up the nut to 50 Newton meters, back it up a quarter turn, and then finalize the torque at 65 Newton meters. So just keep that in mind. We're just gonna snug it up for the first 50, and then we'll finalize it with the actual torque wrench for the 65. All right, we were able to snug it up all the way without having to counter hold. Now we'll just back it up roughly a quarter turn. And now we'll grab our 15, set it on our torque wrench, which we're gonna set to 65 Newton meters, and we'll finalize that bottom nut. Beautiful. Now with that, my good people, let's head back up top to the pinch bolt and finalize that as well. All right, my good people, now for the last nut, we're gonna go ahead and start our 18mm nut by hand. Just gonna reach under here, get that started, and then we're gonna torque this down to 85 Newton meters. I'm gonna change up my strategy here and go with an extension this time and the electric ratchet to snug that up. I think I can feed that behind the shield up here. And then we're gonna use our 17 on the other side to counter hold. Probably should have done that when we removed it, but no problem. Now we're gonna set our torque wrench to 85 and we'll give it the final snug. All right. Beautiful. Now we have that situated, my good people. Let's throw our wheel back on and finalize this DIY. All right, my good people. Now we're gonna go ahead and reinstall our rear wheel. Make sure to line up your lug bolt holes as best as possible and always start your lug bolts in by hand. Last thing you wanna do is cross thread these after a DIY and not be able to go test drive your car. Now we're gonna go ahead and snug them up with the car in the air just so that the wheel is nice and flush against the hub. Then we'll drop the car back on the ground and finalize the torque. All right, let's drop this baby down. Now with the car back on the ground, we can torque our 5 lug bolts to 130 Newton meters. Make sure you do it in a crisscross pattern. And with that, my good people, that is going to finalize this DIY for today. Overall, a really straightforward job on the 987. Again, applicable to your 986, 996, and 997 vehicles. If you like this DIY, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments on what we did today, leave those in the comment section below. And if you like this video and you want to see more like them, please consider subscribing. We make new ones all the time. As always, thank you for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.